troubles me.
Yeah.
I remember when because in the guide, in the Spark guide, I was the storyteller. And when I was doing that, in the process of getting that guide put together, I recalled a particular incident where one of my staff member had braids, right? And the way a few children in the daycare were looking at her like, where did you fall from? That was I think I talked a little bit about it in the Spark guide as well. So I can understand what Ellie is talking about when your child is excluded because of the way they look. They're not some be like, oh, that's too rough. Again, they're kids, but these thoughts are not just dropping from the heavens. It's the environment that they're coming from. So that is a very tough one for me. Shanik says a safe environment where children can express themselves freely without judgment. Nice. Yeah. Casey says that teachers from all cultures should be included and encouraged in early childhood education. This will help educate Canadians that are born and raised here how other cultures are, how other cultures behave, act, and so on. This will reduce judgment and help understand the diversity that needs to be embraced. Well said, Casey.
That's so good. That's so good. And thanks, Amaka, for reading those out. I noticed the hand. I saw, I think it was Loretta, you had your hand up. Do you still have a comment you want to make?
Yeah, I was just going to give a little of my opinion of what I think it should be. I do understand that Canada is a place that has welcomed a lot of cultures, right? So I do think that it is just right that as a cultural rich country, daycare should try to also emulate this. So when we think of an ideal daycare, I think it is one that is shaped by an identity. It is an interplay of culture, an interplay of language, family structure, belief system, and lived experiences. It's very difficult in this time and age, but in a time where social divisions and inequalities can start early, an inclusive daycare is a powerful site of hope and justice. It lays the foundation for a more compassionate classroom and more inclusive communities, more equitable futures, and it says to every child, you belong here. It says to every child, be proud of who you are. It says to every child, you are welcome, without condition, without prejudice. It makes every child very proud of their identity. I want to see Canada, I want to see daycares like this.
Yep. Thank you so much, Loretta, for sharing that. That's very important. Thank you. Gigi, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I have a question for you, Patrick. So you mentioned that your son has experienced this bullying at school, and I was very curious because 5-year-old children, for me, it's hard to imagine what kind of bullying it is. Maybe you can share a little more details with us so that as early childhood educators, we can pay more attention to the signs, clues there might be happening.
I still cringe, Gigi, when I think about the actual things that happened to my son. I cringe, but yeah, I can share it. He was, again, just the vocalized issues, right? Number one, what are you doing here? Go back to Africa. Why are you eating our food? Just that is whoa, hold on. And then the physical aspect of being kicked and being kicked in the private parts, right? And then no reaction happening, right? Again, for me, it was like, whoa, why is this happening? Now, let's take a step back. As educators, as center directors, center managers, let's take a step back. One of the things that I even say in classrooms or wherever I speak is that children are not born racist. Children are not born with cultural biases, or children are not born with certain stereotypes. No. Children in the early years learn by imitating, copying those that are around them, right? So there are conversations that happen at dinner tables. There are conversations that happen at the picnic. There are conversations that happen out at the lake. There are conversations that happen in spaces where folks are racialized. Oh my gosh, we've got a lot of East idiots coming into this country and taking our jobs. Oh my gosh, we've got lots of Africans coming to this country and taking our jobs. They should go back to Africa, right? Why are they even eating our food, right? And all of this is at least in my own personal view, is coming out of ignorance, right? It's coming out of just not being able to appreciate the value of diversity, appreciate what the skills and abilities that folks are coming into Canada with. But importantly, also not recognizing that whoever is perpetrating this or whoever is leading some of these conversations, they themselves, or if they go back in their family trees, are immigrants to this country. Right. And so those are things that we have to grapple with. And so thanks for that question, Gigi. Amaka, if you would allow, there's something as we were speaking that I wanted perhaps to frame, right? Because I recognize that with Gigi, we experienced, and Daisy and some others here that are working within the sector already. But perhaps there are some who are not working in the sector who are on this call and like, oh yeah, I just, came in, take my son, my daughter to school. So I wanted to provide just a brief context, right? Maybe in 2 minutes, just a brief context of what the Canadian childcare system looks like. Right. Again, it's not going to be deep and complex. So in Canada, childcare is primarily sort of regulated at sort of 2 levels, right? The provincial, 3 levels: federal, provincial, and then territorial, right? So in the territories, and we have what we call federal funding frameworks that sort of influence, how childcare evolves around the country. So the federal layer, for example, there's something that every child care director and manager and owner is talking about, which is the Canada-wide early learning and childcare agreement, right? And each province is signing onto these agreements. Basically what is now known as the $10 a day sort of agreement, right? That's at a federal level. At a provincial or territorial level, childcare is, licensed, staff qualification requirements, ratios, curriculum frameworks are set at that provincial territorial layer. When it comes to philosophical approaches and curriculum approaches, right? Because we're having that conversations about, my child should learn this, or, a daycare center should have this and this and this. Different provinces adopt varied pedagogical approaches, right? Varied ways of working or teaching and being with children. For example, some provinces would go more for a play-based learning. Some would go for Reggio Emilio approaches. Some would go for Montessori, or some would go for what is known as emergent curriculum. And so with that, we then go to the next layer of complexity. Remember earlier on, I posed sort of 4 broad level things that we have to think about. The third one would be sort of the cultural and social expectations, right? So we've got the federal, now we have the cultural and social expectations. Now, given that Canada is a multicultural society, expectations for inclusive and perhaps what we'd call culturally responsive childcare is rising, right? Based on this conversation, right? Based on the question that I asked earlier on and what has been put in the chat. Yet the practices will not always align with these things, right? So we've got our expectations coming into Canada. You've got an expectation as a parent, say, even though my daughter or my son's hair is braided, he should also be treated, he or she should also be treated the same, right? That they were this culture, this is our eating practices, this is how we expect children to eat. But those practices do not align to the Canadian sort of childcare system. Now, families, to Daisy's point, may have different child rearing values, right? Communal giving, ways of eating, the use of language, etc. Those are complexities that exist within the childcare system. Now, we also recognize that with Canada being a multicultural society, there's also increasing demand for anti-bias, anti-racist, and Indigenous-informed early learning, right? But that too has not yet been fully responded to because you've got multiple issues. At least in my view, you've got multiple issues, right? Staffing, funding, again, working through bureaucratic hurdles, working through systematized sort of rules that don't allow anti-bias, anti-racist education to be delivered or to be provided to childcare workers. And then this leads me to the last point, which is the workforce and the training. The early childhood educators in Canada must meet credentialing standards. And again, often facing low wages, right? And then the sector itself faces higher turnover, right? Despite the sector's importance. Now, again, this point for me as a researcher, as an educator, it still boggles my mind. Whether in Canada or you're in the US or you are in Nigeria or you're in Zimbabwe or you're in Australia, the fact that the broader system, particularly the funding system, and I'll be very pointed to say perhaps even at a federal level, that there is no intentionality for increasing the wages, increasing the salaries for early childhood educators. Yet, this is in my view, and maybe I'm biased a bit because I'm been in the sector for a while. In my view, and research too attests to this, right? That this sector is one of, if not the important sector in any economy, right? So right now, the World Bank is looking into and has been carrying out research in different regions of the world on the importance of early childhood development as part of human capital development, right? And so we always say, hey, the first 3 years are important. We say an investment in young children is the most important investments. We've got, and I'll share a link if colleagues here or families or parents haven't seen or are into this kind of stuff. There's research that has actually been published now by Larry Schreiner, who used to run the High Scope Center in the US, where they did a longitudinal study, right, dating back into 1968. They followed kids from 1968 until present to look at the impact of early childhood development, right? Again, the major result that came out there was early childhood development is a crucial part of human capital development, but a crucial part of ensuring that nations thrive and succeed, right? And so I wanted just to point a little bit of the sort of framework and context and the complexities that exist. So while we have an ideal picture of what we want a daycare center to look like, or what we want early childhood care and education to look like in Canada, there still are so many layers of complexities that we have to work through. But what's important, in my view, even as I was thinking about this conversation, is turning up and having this conversation, is then advocating, is Amaka saying, you know what, when I saw that incident on my son, I decided that I need to put myself into this sector and be there to be the change. Right. So I just wanted Amaka to point out for those that are families that are just joining in and listening in and saying, oh, what are they talking about? What does childcare look like in Canada? Right. It's just a basic, it is in my view, sort of, federal regulation. And then you have the provincial or territorial regulations that inform staff qualifications, licensing, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And thank you so much, Patrick, for that overview, because that's also important. And, as you were talking about these complexities and the issues, from the federal level all the way to provincial and all that, I might jump in to say that Alberta, unfortunately, haven't signed up to that, federal funding yet.
Yeah.
We miss out on that.
Yeah.
But with that comes a lot of, lack in funding certain projects, especially when it concerns the immigrant families, because again, all these overview is really an ideal childcare that we want to see, but we know that even within that ideal place, there are still these discrimination that still exists. Sometimes I struggle with that, because I keep saying I can't be a politician, to go off of these things. But I know that you do sit in a lot of meetings. You I'm not going to say dine with these people, but you are you are with these people that make decisions, right, and policies and all that. So as an immigrant educator, or as an immigrant parent who is experiencing these for lack of a better word, I call it discrimination, because that's what really, how do we begin? I know, like I said, the first thing for me, opening this foundation is to really seek a solution, right? But I need to listen. I need to hear all these experiences that different parents, different immigrant families are having in whatever childcare program that their children are. Because I think with that, we begin to collect all these stories. And then, Patrick, where do I land these stories? Whose table does this come to?
Yeah, good question. I want to come to that, but I know I see, Gigi, your hand is still up, or is now up again. Did you want to react to what Amaka said? No. Okay. I would not do justice to our conversation if I don't mention this, that all of the challenges that we see right within the child care space, we can say, oh, this is happening. Oh, blame the teachers, blame the center, blame, every single time. And this is something that I also try and teach my own family, particularly my own two kids every time, that whenever you point one finger at someone, you always need to know that there are four fingers that are pointing back at you, right? So when you point with one, there are three, or rather, because the other thumb is probably like that, that are pointing back at you. I think it's important in this conversation to also recognize that as immigrants, as newcomers, that we also have a responsibility as parents. We also have a responsibility for learning, right? We have to learn. We have to understand. We have to, if we are sending whatever, our children to a certain school district or to a certain daycare center, we need to do our own research to understand, to learn first, so that we know what to expect and we know how we are engaging with the school system. So I wanted to say that, first of all, for me, I don't see this conversation as, oh, this is a blame game, or this and this and this. The system is rotten, or it's not working for us. No. There are ways that we also need to come in to learn and to be able to understand the context, because context is important. So So Amaka, to your question, where do we take this? Let's go first with the learning. First, let's engage as families, as childcare workers, as directors. Let's have this bi-directional learning process, right? So we want to teach Daisy. Like, sorry, I'm not picking on you, but if you go back to that earlier on experience that you had, right? There's the ability to walk into the classroom and say, hey, I just wanted to share. Is there space for me to share? Approach the center director or wherever. Is there space for me to share our cultural upbringing or our cultural stories, right? And depending on how that's received, that's an opportunity to inform policy, Amaka, right at the school level, right? Because sometimes we think about policy, it's going to be announced by Mark Carney, or it's going to be announced by our Alberta Premier, etc., etc. Policy is informed right from the grassroots. Right. And so as we advocate for ourselves, as we go into these spaces where the center director or the center owner is able to come in and say, oh, okay, I see what you're trying to do, Amaka. Yeah, please. Yeah, share with us all of these learnings. And then say, hey, is there space when you go to the meeting with the province, or when you go for a meeting with the supervisors, can you just also mention this issue about culture, right? Because policy does not happen in areas that are far removed from us, right? And this notion, if you think about elections and this notion of power by the people and power for the people and with the people, and the power resides with us. Half the time we don't advocate. Half the time, let me go back to me. Half the time I don't advocate, in case there are people that are working hard to advocate. Half the time I don't advocate for the issues that are near and dear to me, right? I don't do that. So classroom, speak to your supervisor, speak to your mentor, speak to your center director. Number one. Number two, there's also ways of practical integration, right? You're speaking to policy, but you're speaking to policy through your day-to-day lived and living experience. What am I talking about? Hey, incorporate classroom discussions that talk about diverse foods. Bring in parents from different communities, from different cultures, to talk about their stories, about how they celebrate birth, how they celebrate birthdays. Bring in elders from the community to talk about parenting styles to your staff, to your team. Say, hey, we're going to have a brown bag lunch. Can you please just come in and share with us your parenting styles? Now, as they do that, you're also arming and equipping the policy makers. And then the last one is respect, looking at respect versus assimilation, right? And so how do we again, it's like, but how do I, as a proud Shona, which is my tribe, African man, how do I also respect the Canadian values, systems, and way of being? Not to expect Canada and the classroom to only just respect where I'm coming from, right? Because remember, I said it's bi-directional learning, right? Yeah. And so how do I work with my family, with my children, to maintain our cultural identity, but also while participating fully in the Canadian cultural identity? Right? Yes. That's very, very important. And as we do that, the policymakers begin to see and say, oh, okay, Patrick and his family are not coming in to try and impose their culture on us, to impose their ways of raising children, their ways of disciplining children, their ways of eating in the classroom, or ways of sharing their diverse foods. No, they are actually providing an opportunity for us to learn, right? Mm-hmm. And so in doing all of this, we are then able to have, from the ground up, the noise starts getting up to the policymakers to say, hey, we need to revisit how we structure our curriculum. We need to revisit how we structure maybe feeding. We need to revisit, even at a university level, we need to revisit how we are training educators to go into the classroom. We need to have more cultural sensitive training programs. We need to have anti-bias, anti-racist courses as part of our core curriculum, right? And so all of these measures, Amaka, hopefully would then lead to the policy conversation.
Great. That's great. Thank you so much. I love the way you kind of framed that whole conversation right there, because you touched on a lot of things that I have in my mind as I set out for this foundation, right? Mm-hmm. So, like the name says, actually, I should put it in the chat here for people that don't have that. It's between cultures, and the idea with that name is that we have to somehow bridge the two cultures, right? Because yes, we are immigrants. We are coming in to the Canadian, culture, if you will. But we also need to find the soft middle where we meet. Like you said, we don't expect them to respect us when we are not respecting theirs, right? I think it's, like you said, it's a bi-directional learning. But when I think about between cultures, that's really what hit me, because I know that there are a lot of immigrants that when they come into this place for the first time, they, the shock and all that is it's huge. They don't know how to, mingle or express themselves even. You know what I mean? And so what this foundation for me is going to do, like I said, first is to listen, because we plan to get out for in-person events, across Alberta, just to hear their stories. And then we're going to also begin to give trainings around how we could, I'm looking for the right word, how we could, not refine. I don't want to use that word, refine ourselves and our culture, because I do not want us to lose who we are because we're trying to fit in, because that's a no for me, right? But there are still things that we could do to limit the labeling that our children are receiving in these spaces, right? There are things that we could do so that they don't think that we are aggressive, because that's the what they always think about immigrants, really. And so those are some of the workshops and the trainings that are coming up, as this foundation begins to get into a very serious work that is accurate. So I like the way you talked about that, bringing awareness of your own culture, and also what you're expecting. But like I said, right now it's about listening. It's about gathering these stories, because I think, like you said, you start from the grassroots and then the noise goes up. That's really what I want. We are hoping this whole conversation series, both virtual and in person across our other, is going to get for us at some point. So thank you so much for framing that. That was really nice.
That's beautiful. And so, Amaka, in our coffee conversations, now I'm just bringing everyone along into this, so you'll forgive me, Amaka. But I'm never one of a challenge to you, and I always throw a lot of challenges to you. So I want to give you some more for Between Cultures. First, again, I've said it to you directly, but I'll say it again in public. Congratulations for setting up the foundation and stepping up and doing something, right? And I'll say this very, very clearly, that there are a lot of people that are standing by the wayside that will just talk about it, but there are few people that will actually do something. And so congratulations to you for doing something, and congratulations for those, again, on this call that are doing something in however way. I recognize you, Sawubona. I see you, is what we would say in South Africa. We recognize you, we see you, and thank you. But Amaka, here's my challenge to you and your team at Between Cultures. Think about setting up mentorship programs. That mother, that father, that new family, newcomer family that has come in, how are you? Can you pair them with experienced families as they start navigating their journey in the daycare system? Number one. So think about mentorship programs. Think about community forums such as this, right? Safe spaces for sharing experiences and questions, right? And thank you. And I've just heard you just now, you say that, look, this is just the start of having online and in-person, and so great. Professional development, right? How can we provide continual training and support for childcare providers, for the educators? And Gigi mentioned a point that just hit my heart in a very poignant way, right? Number one, we have all of this training that we're getting in university, in college, and when we take it to the center, we are pushed aside. We say, oh, no, this is just new. Let's show you how the things really, really work. All of these things that you're coming in, Gigi, they're just from school, they're textbook stuff. It doesn't work in the real world. No. So how, again, do we provide professional development, not only for the CYC workers, for the child and youth care workers that are coming out of the colleges now, but how do we also provide professional development for those that have already been in the sector? And so a challenge for Between Cultures is to create these training programs and ongoing training programs for those in the sector. And then the last challenge is advocacy. All of this training, and I know we're short of time, but all of this training is for what? We need to influence policy and programs, right? And so again, challenging Between Cultures to then begin to think about, okay, how do we use the power of our voice and the power of our collectivity to work for system alternatives? I would not say system change. And so system change is, for me, is a very difficult word, because a system will always change to serve itself. Rarely does a system change to serve others. But I want to challenge you, Amaka, and Between Cultures to think about systems alternatives. Right? How do we bring in the teaching that Daisy, and again, I'm not picking on you, you mentioned something that's very, very important, right? To say, hey, we've got a way of raising children, we've got a way of eating, or of communing, or of sharing food at a communal place, right? How do we use that as an alternative? How do we use that as a way to teach people about interdependence, about community, about the values of kindness, humility, respect in that setting, right? And then use that to say, hey, Between Cultures is proffering another system alternative, not a way to change the system. The minute you say, hey, I want to change the system will work hard to protect itself. No, there is no change that's happening here.
Right.
But
Right.
how does Between Cultures work towards system alternatives? Thank you so much for inviting me and inviting all of us to have this conversation tonight.
Yeah, it's really wonderful, and thank you again. I just wanted, before we go, I just put the website on our chat here, so you could go in and see for yourself. All those challenges that Dr. Pimak has thrown my way, or our way, is already in that website. It's
beautiful.
What we already have envisioned that we're going to go through. And I also, on the chat side, see some of the comments. Daisy said, my daughter has experienced racism twice in school, and it is more common among children than we realize. And that is
that's sad.
Yes, very sad. And Gigi also said that many programs have years of experience, but they stopped learning and stick to their own outdated philosophies. So new educators working there will also be limited and feel confused because what they recently learned in school does not align with the reality and the program's policies and my goodness, I can't say that word. Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
Programs, policies, and procedures.
Maybe procedures, yes, because I think it's a typo. It is a typo.
Yeah.
So, and I agree with you, Gigi. You are right. You're dead, and that is another topic on its own that we could get in and begin to peel out right there. But yeah, so this is great. Thank you, Dr. Pimak, for really honoring my my invitation to show up and have this beautiful conversation tonight. And
awesome.
Also thank every single person that has showed up as well tonight for this conversation. I really want you to understand, yes, that this is going to keep happening. It's not going to be a one-off thing. So if you do want us to contact you directly when a program of this conversation is going on, or maybe we're coming to, if you're not from Calgary, we're coming to a city near you, please drop your email in the chat box, and we will do our best to also reach out to you, because like I said, this is the beginning of this these conversations. We need to hear what you feel, how your children are coping in these daycare centers, because it is real. Let's keep it going. So thank you everyone for being here, and I'm wishing you all the best of the weekend, I guess, and hopefully no rain.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you for sharing.
Nice
to meet you again, Amaka.
Thank you, Gigi. I really enjoyed your questions, because those are real issues that we need to start looking into.
Yeah, if we have other opportunities, we would like to share more. Especially it's our practicum 3 now, me and my classmates. We always talk about it all the time.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah, thank you for showing up.